Before we dive in, want to start by giving you a little general information about Zuri Group. So we are a full service consulting agency that works exclusively with nonprofits on a wide range of services. We handle everything from full-scale CRM implementation, system assessment, selection, peer-to-peer fundraising, web design, development, and fundraising strategy, and then also everything in between. So if you have a need, most likely Zuri Group has the answer for you. We are a group of passionate consultants who are dedicated to helping you, nonprofits, use the technology that you have to better your relationships with your constituents and also maximize your impact. So today's topic is expert access. For those of you who are familiar or may not be familiar with expert access for Blackbaud CRM, today's the day you're going to learn it all. I want to start off by introducing you to your four speakers for today. You have a wonderful group prepared to show you all of this great material. I will start off by introducing Ken Swift. He's our president of CRM services. Ken has 20 years of experience in IT, and more than a decade of that is working exclusively with nonprofits. Ken has worked on a broad set of technologies, and his background makes him uniquely qualified to leverage the right technology to help nonprofits support their organizational goals. I want to also introduce Andrew Urban, who's the Director of Market Development. Andrew has 25 years of experience working in technology solutions, and the majority of that time has been spent directly in the fundraising space. Andrew's an author, he's an expert in his field, and he is passionate about technology being expertly applied to achieve your mission's success. John Sturmer is one of the senior developers who is behind the beauty that is Expert Access suite of services. He's a seasoned professional and has over 13 years specializing in web and software development and support. And last but certainly not least is Brian Harris. Brian has 15 years of experience, so hopefully you see there's a lot of experience here for you today. Brian's experience is in Blackbaud software, specializing in custom reporting and development. His expertise covers a variety of areas, including Razor's Edge, Education Cause, and obviously BBCRM. He also is very, very knowledgeable in business intelligence and development, SQL reporting, and technical consultation for Blackbaud Data Warehouse. So now that you've met the team for today, I'll show you the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about expert access as an overview. These great men are going to dive in and show you some product demonstrations, and then we'll end our call with a Q&A. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Andrew Urban. He's going to take it from here.
Thank you so much, Carly. And I appreciate you running a little bit through Zuri Group. And I know a lot of our audience here today is familiar with Zuri Group in one form or another. What I wanted to do is just from the expert access was created out of a ability for Zuri Group as what we know as a company, as our experience with Blackbaud CRM, our length of experience, as well as the values that we hold as a company. As you heard from our experience, we've been around for 12, 13 years. The average consultant on our staff has over 17 years of experience working with nonprofit specific technology. And 40% of the enterprise CRM folks out there are or have been customers of Zuri Group. And if you go to the higher ed side of that, it's closer to 60%. But we really look at expert access from the values there at the bottom: objectivity, collaboration, the ability to work with specific solutions that are right-sized for an organization to be able to solve a unique and specific business problem. We look at all of the solutions that are within expert access through the lens of all of the lines of businesses that Zuri works within. So while we understand and we know that a lot of these solutions revolve around integration or custom work or specific CRM services, they really do fall under the banner of of understanding that some are directly related to digital marketing, design, fundraising, or even business process and operations. And the value in Expert Access also goes to the fact that it's our team that builds these and supports these and helps your organization, as witnessed by the people who are presenting here today. I think the business problem that the program itself is trying to solve is this idea that it can take months to years to go from, I have this problem and I've identified it as a process issue or some sort of, or a need that I'd like to have my fundraisers be able to do something different, or I'd like for people to be able to work within BBCRM on the front end or back end differently. And what we've seen is there's one time that we come up with the idea. There's another time when we start to look and research that idea. And then there's a third time of when you have to go and budget for that idea and then potentially get it approved, funded, and then another set of time for implementation. Expert Access looks to solve all of that by condensing this into a program that puts this together. We look at this from two ways: easy to implement solutions, and then the ability to partner for Blackbaud CRM community itself. The easy to implement means that all the solutions you'll see today and that we will talk through, or you'll see on the slides, are included in one annual subscription. All the services and support are included within that. And when I talk about our values and what's in the Zuri Group DNA, no per user cost or license keys are involved. We want you to get these and try them and work with them and see how they fit with your unique environment. Each Blackbaud CRM environment is unique and different in its own ways. And in order for you to be able to utilize and test these across your multiple environments is very important. So we have worked very closely with our customers, and we trust them, and we know that we can work in a cooperative and supportive manner. And that's why we have over 25 different solutions included in Expert Access today. We're adding new solutions every quarter, and we'll talk further in a bit about co-development opportunities. Many of the solutions that we'll talk about came about because a client said, hey, this is a solution that we need, and we wanted to find a way to work with that client in order to benefit the larger Blackbaud CRM community out there. And of course, one of the best benefits of Expert Access is that it includes a CRM health check. Your ability to go in and have experts look into your environments and be able to see what are ways that we can really help you make that work and sing. So we're going to go through three sections of the Expert Access program where these tools lie. And we kind of break them into typical back-end, front-end, and fundraiser-specific solutions. And you can see on the back end, there's a number. Ken will be talking about REST APIs, a little bit about single sign-on, as well as some of the data warehouse parts. We'll also then go to the front end, and we'll talk about, we'll showcase our constituent compare tool and a couple other, and the batch splitter solutions. And then at the end of the time here today, we'll talk about the fundraiser solutions, and you'll see a little bit of our Outlook integration, as well as how we've revamped the Blackbaud's fundraiser on the go in order to really make that a solid and impressive tool for your fundraisers that they can use once we're able to be on the go again. So thank you for your time, and we're excited to show you these solutions. Mr. Swift.
Yes, Brian Harris is going to demo our Data Warehouse Express utility to kick things off today. But I thought it'd be a little kind of backstory. So about 2 years ago, I was driving back to Dallas-Fort Worth, and in an absolute torrential downpour, and one of our clients had given me a call just on the spur of a Friday afternoon and said, hey, Blackbaud trainers had just left, and they had trained us on how to use the Blackbaud SDK to do data warehouse extensions and custom ETL work for the Blackbaud data warehouse. And they said, we think we have forgotten more than we learned or can remember, and so we think it would be, there's got to be a better way to do this. Well, because of this torrential rain, my flight was canceled. I ended up spending many, many hours sitting in the Dallas-Fort Worth airport and had time to kind of ponder this on a Friday evening. And I reached out to a couple of my colleagues at Zuri that evening. I'm sure they appreciated a Friday night call. And then what came out of that was the Data Warehouse Express, which is the utility that Brian is going to show, which will show you that you can do all of your Blackbaud Data Warehouse extension development work all without writing a single SSIS package, You can do it all within the Blackbaud shell. You no longer have to open support tickets with Blackbaud or with your internal IT team. You can deploy things from environment to environment. So Brian, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So as Ken mentioned, the big benefit of the BBW Express tool is the ability to handle your data warehouse extensions without involving third parties and without requiring a lot of third-party development software. If you're not familiar, the data warehouse extensions are set in place by the Blackbaud development team, and in order to build additional extensions, they've given you some SDK tools to be able to do that. And if you haven't seen it before, it would look something like this. This is a revision file that would kind of walk you through all the code that's going to build tables and whatnot on your system. And then you'd have to have a developer with SSIS knowledge build a package that would basically go through the process of saying, where's the data coming from in your transactional database? What are you doing to that data before loading it into your warehouse? And then, of course, where your warehouse lives. So this process that you would go through, again, requires some development time, some third-party development tools like Visual Studio, and then in a hosted environment, requires working with the Blackbaud team to get these files in place and get the data warehouse redeployed each time a change needs to be made. So what we've done at Zuri Group with the Data Warehouse Express tool is we've created a tool right here in administration that allows users or your internal developers to do all that process all within CRM without ever having to open up a third-party software, without ever having to involve Blackbaud or any other development team. You can see here within the tool, you have the ability to design numerous different tables. I've been working on many different projects, so you can see I have quite a few here. Within each one of these, you would then have the ability to define the tables, excuse me, not the tables, but the fields within the tables. So in this case, this is a prospect manager history table, and we're looking at prospect manager fields here. And then I get to define my own SQL that will determine how the information is going to be pulled from the transactional database in this case and brought over into the warehouse. So this step here will all be done within CRM, and not only developing and defining the table, but also deploying the table. So something that you would have to get sent to your servers, for example, can now be done straight through the software. I have the ability to mark this specific table that I'm working on as ready to deploy, and then deploy it straight out to the data warehouse. So this process itself would create the table, and now I would have in my warehouse a DIM prospect manager history extension table, for example. On top of that, we then give you the option, or give you the ability to run your own ETL process on top of the out-of-box Blackbaud ETL process. That out-of-box process runs through the number of tables that Blackbaud's provided you. You can then come in here and create your own ETL. And you can see that in this ETL process, you can define which tables you're actually interested in running. So in this case, I have multiple different ETL processes. One is a one of, let's say I just wanted to update one table for a test purpose, for example, or I can run all of my tables and have them all load. And then once this ETL process is defined, you can tag it onto the end of the out-of-box process, so that as soon as your standard ETL runs, the standard Blackbaud Data Warehouse ETL runs, it then kicks off your extensions, and it's all seamless and runs together. Some really cool features that we like are the fact that you can turn these tables on and off as part of your ETL. So, for example, if you had a developer working on an effective amount extension, this one here, if that one wasn't running, it was giving you an error message, or let's say that it was running for an inordinately long amount of time and needed to be researched, you can come in here and enable and disable each one of these individually. So if you knew that that one isn't ready for the show, it's not ready for go live, but you still needed to run some stuff in the interim, you can turn that off and on, and that way it's not interfering with any other developer or with any of your other processes. And then one of the last things that I wanted to go ahead and show, and Ken kind of touched on this, is the ability to import and share these ETL processes, or these tables through various different databases. So for example, if at your organization you have a development environment, a staging environment, a user acceptance environment, and then a production environment, you don't have to worry about deploying these files to each of those different servers and having them loaded and having the data warehouses updated. You simply have the ability to download the table definition, which will create an XML file with all the code necessary to recreate this extension. And then you would just go into the BBDW Express tool on those other environments, import the table definition, and choose that file right off the bat. And it gets added right to the list. You can mark it ready for deploy. And in a matter of minutes, you've now got your new table and your new ETL setup process on each environment. An additional benefit to that tool is the fact that as the number of our clients that use the BBDW Express tool grows, you can share your extensions and get ideas from other organizations. So for example, if you came up with a very good extension that you think every organization in your environment would need, you have the ability to share that XML file, that import definition with them. They can import it into their environment. And as long as it's nothing that's proprietary to your organization, they can be up and running with their extension, again, in a matter of minutes. So to me, the tool's indispensable as someone who goes back and forth during the development process, has to create multiple different versions and fix syntax errors. It's very nice to be able to do all that without leaving CRM, without having to involve an IT staff or a hosting environment team. It gives you the ability to do this over and over again, redeploy tables, modify tables, and get your data warehouse up to speed with any new extensions that you may need.
Brian, thank you so much for that demo. As Brian mentioned, we have a number of clients that are using this tool already. In their experiences, they are seeing in some cases a 5 or 10x return in terms of the development time that it takes their developers to create extensions now, as opposed to the way that they were doing it using the Blackbaud SDK. And the fact that they can deploy a single table extension without redeploying the entire data warehouse is a huge time saver, not just in the effort from the developers, but just in the total duration it takes to get a customization deployed and ready for testing. So thank you, Brian. I've done a couple of projects during this kind of pandemic shutdown. Typically, I have a teenage girl that I'm running to dance classes, and an almost teenage boy that I'm running to baseball and basketball and things like that. So, without having to drive kids to different activities, I had the opportunity to actually work on some fun projects. And one of the projects that I had been toying with for a number of years was the Restful APIs. So what this ended up being, and what we're working with a couple of organizations with now, is essentially taking these SOAP-based APIs that are available from Blackbaud and actually creating a wrapper for those. And what that looks like, and I have actually built these out in Postman here. So it allows a user, an organization, using these RESTful APIs to consume data lists, to retrieve data from code tables, as well as do the CRUD operations around code tables, so they can add new code table entries, update and remove code tables. You can execute ad hoc queries and get those back. Some data list, search list, data forms. So the first thing you need to do is actually create a bearer token. So a bearer token is the way that most RESTful APIs use to authenticate. So this is a JWT token. So what this does is every time I click send here, it generates a new token. So this is an encrypted token. And so I take this token, oops, let me copy this value, and I can plug that into any one of these other processes. So let's do a search list first. So I'm going to scroll to the top here. I'm going to go into the authorization and give it the new token that was just generated. The token has a time to live. I think I have it set right now at it's either 1 day or 24 hours. I can't remember. It's a configurable setting in the web.config. But you put this token in here. Included in this is some additional encrypted connection information to the Blackbaud CRM instance, as well as that time to live. And then you call this search list, and here's the GUID of the search list inside of Blackbaud CRM. And You can see that it took 3 seconds to get the data back. So let me show you a little bit what the body is. So this is a RESTful API is just using JSON, which is basically a kind of a tabular, comma separated list of parameters. And so those parameters for a search list should mimic essentially what you see on the screen when you go to do a constituent search through Blackbaud CRM. So this search right now is I'm saying I want to do a constituent search for anybody that's affiliated with lookup ID 96, which for those of you that have been in Blackbaud for an extended period of time know that is Robert Hernandez. And so Robert Hernandez is members of a number of groups. He has a number of family members in the database. And so what that resulted in when I click send here was 11 different results. And so this is just the JSON result body that is returned. So if we scroll down through this list, somewhere in here we'll see Robert Hernandez, but you'll see that these are the different groups that he's a member of. There's Robert Hernandez's personal record there. We'll probably see another record for him. Wendy Hernandez is going to be in this list as his spouse. And so that's just a quick execution of the search list. If we go back and we do the same thing for, let's do a code table. So if you want to get the code table values for the address type code, again, update the token, hit send, and here are the 17 different code address type codes that we have set up in our database. And so using any sort of programming language, you can consume this JSON data set. If you're using .NET, you can do some dynamic typing of this data set to kind of walk through it. If you're using a JavaScript to consume this, the opportunities are endless when it comes to the ability to consume this data. It's a whole lot easier to work with than the traditional SOAP-based messages. So that's a quick run through. That's what I have been doing during during the early part of the pandemic lockdown. So that was kind of my March through kind of May project. The next thing I wanted to show was moving out of the back end and moving into the front end. So we had a client that reached out to us, I think it was earlier this year, it may have been late last year, and they had imported in roughly 140,000 or so constituents into their database, knowing that the vast majority of those constituents were going to be duplicates. And so they engaged us to help kind of do some triage of those records. And so when we looked at those records, we determined about 80% of those records were essentially exact duplicates. So they had a match score of 100%. And so we allowed the Blackbaud CRM to automatically go through and merge those constituents. So what that actually left us with was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 28,000 or so constituents that this organization actually wanted to put eyes on. So they actually wanted to look at each one of these records. They were trying to use the traditional tools within Blackbaud CRM, which is the duplicate compare report, which looks like this. And so they would run the duplicate compare report. They would get this report. It would have 28,000 potential duplicates in here, and then they would have to click on each one of these and compare side by side to determine what to do. It was taking them anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes per record to compare those duplicate records. And then make a determination. We said, well, we think we can do something better, but still leveraging the out-of-the-box tools. And so what we've done is we've created this constituent compare functionality. So in the constituent area of CRM, we have duplicate compare. And so what an organization does is they still run the Blackbaud standard process to identify the duplicates, but instead of reviewing those duplicates in a report like this, they are now able to review those in a list builder format. So we can see that we think that Ken Swift and Ken Swift are two potential duplicates. The reason only one record shows up on here is I just earlier today I just ran an incremental after adding a two Ken Swift record just to make sure that showed up. So if I click on this 100% here, it now gives me a side-by-side comparison of these two constituents. It also checks it out to myself as a user. So this organization had, I think, 6 or 8 members of their record management team. And their record management team member wanted to review all 28,000 records. And so they needed an efficient way to allow somebody to open a record, but not so that somebody else wouldn't open the same record and 2 people. So we have this whole checkout mechanism built into it. So when you open a record, it automatically checks it out for you so that nobody else can check it out. The person can look at these records very, very quickly in a matter of seconds and typically determine whether or not these 2 records are duplicates or not. You can toggle the source and target just by clicking the switch source and target. So if you think that the source record is actually better than the target, or vice versa, you can toggle those back and forth. If you're not the person that should be making the decision on this record, you can do one of two things. Either you can say flag this for supervisory review. So if you think this needs somebody else to look at it, you can flag it for supervisory review, and so then somebody else that maybe is more experienced and more familiar with this record can look at it. You can also check it back in, which returns it back into the list, or you can flag for merge. If you flag for merge, there's a custom global change that we have created that will then merge these records using one of the merge configurations that you have set up in Blackbaud CRM. Or you can say flag is not as a duplicate. And so you can flag as not a duplicate, and so that these records never show up again in the list. And so this organization, in a matter of weeks, was able to go through these 28,000 records and put eyes on every single potential duplicate and make a determination. And now they are using this process on a daily basis to, in an ongoing fashion, daily look at new records that are coming into their system and make and keep their database as clean as possible. So that is the duplicate compare utility. The next thing that I wanted to show is just a very quick utility, but has a whole lot of value, which is our batch splitter. So many organizations get files from third-party vendors that are really, really large, and so and maybe there's a handful of exceptions in those batches. Maybe they want to split those batches up into different ways. So what I've done is I've created I imported a batch today, just relatively small. I think it had 16 records in it. But it gives you the possibility to take a batch and split it into smaller batches. And so you can do that in one of two ways. We can search for the batch here. Let me go open the batch right here. And so you can either split a batch based on a field. And so, for example, if you wanted all your if you had a vendor that was sending you files and it was a mixture of cash, check, and credit card, you could say that I want the credit card transactions to go into a separate batch in CRM versus those that go into the cash and checks to go into something else. And that could be done for two reasons. Either you want to link those to different deposits within Blackbaud CRM to make reconciliation easier. If you think there's going to be a lot of exceptions in a batch and you want different members of your records or get processing teams to analyze those, you can split those based on the number of records. So I'm just, for the sake of ease, I'm just going to split this batch into batches of 4. And so what this is going to do is create transactions 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, and 13 through 16 are going to get loaded or get created as separate batches. So if I click and save here, we will see that the data list, so the original batch is no longer, and instead of having 16 records in the original batch, now I just have 4 batches with 4 records each. So it's just a very, very quick and easy way for organizations to divide work across team members, help make reconciliation easier on the back end, so you don't have to you don't have to link when you go to link deposits, you can just choose the batch. You don't have to actually go through the individual batch and choose which transactions need to go in which link deposit and which batches need to go into a separate one. So I think those are the two things I was going to show you this afternoon, kind of on the front end. So that was the constituent compare and the batch splitter, and then on the back end, we quickly ran through the Restful Apis. So I think we're ready to hand it over to John Sturmer, who's going to kick things off with either the Outlook plugin or our Fundraiser on the Go customizations.
I will go ahead and start by showing off the bio update customization that we have created. All right. So essentially, we had a need from some clients where they had workflows in place where they didn't want everyone in the organization to be able to make direct database writes for constituent contact information. So with the bio update customization, we essentially added a second set of buttons to addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses where you can do a bio update add or edit. Essentially, these forms are going to look exactly like what comes out of the box. The main difference being is that instead of writing direct to the database, they will write to a custom constituent update batch. And I happen to have some examples for this constituent set up. So you have your normal batch change screen, but we also have this requested changes button up at the top, which lets you do an in-place comparison to what's already in the database compared to what is in the batch. That way you can do a side-by-side check and make sure that what has been proposed is exactly what you're looking to go ahead and add to the database or ignore if you don't feel like they're proper changes. In this case, I have a brand new address, so there are no current values in place, and you can go ahead and choose to add or ignore the new record. Over here, we have an existing phone number where the proposed value is different from the current, so you can choose to update, or you could even go in and individually by field edit the incoming information in case you found out there was a typo in the update. You can hit save, and then the batch can be validated and committed just like any other one. That's essentially what this does. We have an additional catch-all form here where we have a code table that all these different field types are configured in it on a per organization basis, and then you just kind of put in a free-form text. That way the approver can go in and make the appropriate changes. Now that segues into the Outlook customization. Basically, once you have installed the Outlook plugin for Office 365, you'll get this new section in your ribbon up at the top. And this will open up some buttons for you to be able to do some of the more common interactions as a fundraiser that you would normally have to switch back and forth between your CRM instance and Outlook just to maybe copy over some constituent information as you've been speaking with them over email, or if someone new is there, you will have to go in and add them to CRM. So from here, once you decide to file any reports or check on contact info, the add-in will go out to your CRM instance and try to make a match based on the email address of the person who's not you in the email that you're focused on at the time. So in this case, I'm speaking to Susan, and I'm going to go ahead and click through into her contact information, and we get a full list of everything that's committed to the database in CRM currently. So we have a list of addresses, email addresses, phone numbers. Any changes or additions that are made through here go through our bio update customization. So this all gets put into batch. You don't have to worry about direct database rights. That, of course, everything in here is built from scratch, so it's configurable. And if you decide that you don't want to have to go through that workflow for everyone, we can make those changes as necessary. But from here, you can go ahead and click on an edit for any of these items, and you'll see it's the same form fields that you get out of the box in CRM. We'll pre-populate the ones for edits. Additions, it's the same form, just empty at that point. And the same biofeedback form is here with the same code table values. Everything gets pulled from CRM in real time. The only thing that doesn't get loaded in is new items that are still sitting in uncommitted batches. Everything is requiring data to be up to date in the database. But that is the contact info. From here, we can also choose to go ahead and file interactions, file unplanned reports against an existing plan, or file contact reports against planned steps. So we also have the shortcut for those right within the app. This is helpful for the mobile view. That way you're not having to get to the ribbon menu. It's a little cumbersome for add-ins on mobile. So everything is shortcutted right here. We'll jump right into filing an interaction. This is like the basic core fields that are in the out-of-the-box version of the add interaction form. As you can see, we pre-populate some of the information. The objective is filled with the subject of the email you're in. The comments are the body of the email, the entire thread. They're both editable. So this is really just kind of a start off. You can go ahead and choose to search for a fundraiser. Select who you like. That's your owner. We have the ability to put in expected dates, actual dates, time pickers, time zone selections. Everything's coming out of CRM, and everything that goes through the interaction form or the plan or unplanned step contact report forms, those are committed real time to the database. The only thing that goes through batch currently is everything for biographical information for a constituent. And I will go ahead and jump over to the plan contact. Now, prior to filing a report, whether it's planned or unplanned, you have to choose at least a plan or a plan step that you'd like to file against. So from here, I can choose to go ahead and file a report against an existing plan step. And you'll see same out of the box fields that are in CRM currently. And if I go back, we can go ahead and file, we have shortcuts to go straight to doing unplanned reports against an existing plans. And same thing again. So the purpose of this is really just to shortcut a lot of the common actions that you'll see fundraisers having to deal with if they use a lot of email to go back and forth with their constituents. So this seems to be a huge time saver, big help, and we have a lot of big plans for this in the future. So to continue on with the fundraising side of things, I'm going to go ahead and show off some of the enhancements we've made to Fundraiser on the Go. A lot of this was basically just small quality of life improvements to help make Frog easier to use at a quick glance. So from here, we've added icons, the same ones that you'll get out of the box, next to everyone that's in your portfolio, so you can tell at a quick glance that they're an individual, or they're a household, or they're an organization, or a group. And also we have information about what your relation is to the prospect. So in this case, I'm a manager. You'll see the most recent or the most up-to-date plan that you're dealing with, and if they're past due or if they have an upcoming date on them, you'll see that there are some plan or pending items that need to be addressed. We enhanced the search feature to include more fields that are part of the normal constituent search in CRM, including being able to include deceased constituents, or automatically filter by constituencies, or search by prospect manager. I'm going to go ahead and search for some constituents, and from here you can see that we've added different iconography and styling just to let you know this person's been assigned to someone already, they are deceased, or some summary information to make sure that you're looking at the right person. So you'll see partial address, primary phone number, primary email. The icons are back so you know what type of constituent you're dealing with. Lookup IDs, for whatever reason, were just not really a part of Frog in the first place. So just an easy addition right there to kind of streamline being able to go back and forth between this and CRM, or if you're speaking with someone back in the organization over the phone, you can quickly address them by their lookup ID. Very simple. We added in a per user settings tab where once you're in a prospect view, you can go ahead and reorder the different sections that are in there. You can choose to show or hide sections, and since these are all per user, everyone can tailor their Frog experience to their own needs. So it's very convenient that way. And if I go back to the search, I'm going to go ahead and click into one of our constituents. And on the constituent view page, we added just a bit more information. So their lookup ID is right front and center, prospect manager information, their contact type preference, The notification bar that's on the constituent summary page makes an appearance here, and when you click on it, it's the same pop-up information. More details with next step information. We added in 2 new sections. It's a list of all their constituencies, as well as their group details. Within the groups, you can see what groups they're a member of, all the members in the group, who the primary member is. Makes it very easy to be able to click through to a group or another constituent and stay within Frog and just really be able to get a look at all of this while you're out in the world and on your phone. And for the existing sections, a lot of it was just kind of adding additional functionality, like we have in the summary information where these totals are put together. There's custom smart field that lets you rename these. That way it can be something that's a little more clear to the organization. Also within recent event registrations, we have full address details, and it's clickable and it will open up a map for you. More of the information that's not quite as pertinent gets put down below the fold, and that is the same for pretty much all of these tabs. We just kind of prioritized what data points are really necessary to have at a quick glance. For events, it's really just who, what, and where, and when, and that's it. Recent steps and interactions, typically you only see the 5 most recent ones. We added in kind of an infinite scroll to this, so you can continue to load 5 at a time until the list is basically exhausted. And that's pretty much it. Just a lot of little things to help make this better to work with. All we'd ever heard was that its functionality was very limited, and it just didn't quite hit the marks that a lot of organizations needed to make it useful. So our goal is to try and achieve that and make sure that everyone can actually get some good use out of this. And
John, I think the combination of the Outlook plugin mixed with the ability to use Frog when you're on the go, and then the ability with the biographical constituent updater to actually keep updates within process. It's been a wonderful way to look at all of that within a detailed process as opposed to individual applications.
Yeah, absolutely. And more than anything, we need to be able to try to support people who are out in the field. Opening up a full CRM instance on your phone is just really not possible. Not everyone has the ability.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
We have 25 plus solutions within the 3 buckets that we call it. We look at these in this way because we have folks who are looking at expert access, and their issues and their needs and their problems really rely around the data warehouse, or maybe they need a single sign-on solution, or as the REST APIs for integration. Or what we really are trying to do is also those small pain points that make Blackbaud CRM sometimes a little cumbersome to use. We're able to iron those out through the constituent utilities for converting and compare, for global changes, and for constituent tiles to be able to show more information. Or on the fundraiser side, just that ability, as we talked about, to be able to live within Outlook but make updates as you need it, and when you're on the road, in order to be able to quickly look up without having to take all of Blackbaud CRM with you, being able to look up and find specific fundraiser enhancements fundraiser information necessary for the potential next meeting that they have. Along with integrations that we've done, Evertrue and Reher. Coming up soon is going to be a Gmail integration. We're looking at partnering with a couple other folks on you can see the revenue global changes just came out. We just added the recipient badge. So we're very excited, and we enjoy working with clients on what are these items that we that are needed, and how can we work with you to provide that to the betterment of the Blackbaud CRM greater community. From a pricing perspective, I mentioned that we do all of this as a one price subscription across an annual fee. And we charge a $35,000 first year fee, and then $25,000 each year after that. We have done, and we are very flexible for clients who in the past maybe purchased one of these solutions a la carte in the past. And we certainly also work with clients who make through co-development opportunities. If there are specific solutions that aren't in BBCRM, but you and we all feel that these are things that should be added for the betterment of the community, we'll work with you on the pricing as a co-development opportunity for that. And I did mention early on about how this program is set up within the DNA of what the DNA and the values of what Zuri Group is, and that is that it's not just here, take this and go. It's included with services and support to help you. And there's a functional spec for every one of these solutions to follow to make sure that you're able to implement and set this up correctly within your unique environment. And the other is that, again, no per user cost or license keys. Put this on a test server, run it, implement it 6 months or a year later. It's up to you. We want you to be able to work with this within the time that works for your team, for your staff, and for your users. So thank you so much for your time, and we're excited to show you what we've created with Expert Access, and we're looking forward to what the future of it will be with the community that's all together here. And from here, I think we'll go to questions and see what's out there. Carly, do we have any questions?
We do. We've got some great questions and just about 10 minutes to answer them. So I'm going to dive right in. One of the first questions we got is there a web service or WSDL going to be available as a Postman import collection file?
I'm going to let Ken take that.
So what we've been doing to date is just exporting the existing Postman collection and providing that to clients. So I don't know if we will necessarily publish it, but we do have the Postman collection that we are willing to and have provided to others in order to pull that into their own Postman in order to kind of exercise these RESTful APIs.
Thanks.
And Ken, in a similar fashion with the Data Warehouse Express, where we have the ability to share with the community different profiles that are created. Not using
exactly. Yeah, Brian touched on that actually. And I don't know, maybe Brian could, but we do have a public Confluence page where we do maintain documentation for the Data Warehouse Express, and as part of that, we are planning to add. I think it's kind of in its infancy right now, but a publicly available kind of library for organizations to publish their XML exports of data warehouse extensions that they have already developed using this framework.
Thanks. Well, here's another question for you. Are there REST APIs to update records in the CRM?
Yes, yeah. The RESTful APIs at this point can do everything that you can do through the front end of CRM or through via the SOAP APIs. So I did not show those, but yeah, the data form APIs are also there. I tackled the most difficult API and difficult form in the product, which is the add payment screen. It does take a little bit of I think it's 73 lines of JSON code or something like that in order to get, or JSON script in order to get it to work. But yes, you can read, write, delete, search, browse results from query lists, and you can pretty much do anything you can do through the SOAP APIs, or not pretty much. You can do everything you can do through the SOAP APIs as well as through the front end of CRM via the RESTful APIs at this point.
Can the Outlook plugin be used with custom forms and not just out of the box?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. The long answer is we need to discuss that. So our goal is to have by and large, a product rather than a unique version of the Outlook plugin for every client. So we don't want to have 30 or 40 or 50 different versions of the Outlook plugin that we have to maintain across different clients, because it just makes it more difficult to roll out. Is it possible? Yes, but I think we just need to have a more thoughtful conversation. I know it's not unusual for organizations to customize the interaction area, interaction forms inside of CRM. So happy to talk through that. And possibly the customization you might want to add, maybe it is something that we add, but we provide some degree of configuration for an organization to swap screens out.
Perfect. Going back to that last question, actually, since it was it was regards to the solution for merge review. And so just as a reminder, on merge review, can we select which pieces of data that we want from each record to merge?
Correct. When you actually do the merge, it actually uses a predetermined merge configuration that you've set up inside of CRM. So as long as your merge configuration has the actual business rules for you to choose which fields you want to pull from the source and merge into the target, yes. So we don't just merge everything together, but it is determined by a client configured configuration.
Great, great. More questions. How much work is required to ensure that the specific customizations will continue to work after a BBCRM upgrade?
So most of these customizations, with a few exceptions, have been built built using the Blackbaud SDK. So the one is our single sign-on solution. That was built at the platform level, so that does not work. That was built outside of the SDK. The Restful APIs are also deployed as a standalone web application that sits outside of CRM but consumes the SOAP APIs. So with those two exceptions, everything else has been built using the SDK, which means that it would be supported just like any other customization that an organization would create.
Great. Two questions left. One is, in constituent compare, what name fields are visible? And also, can you see all contact info, including secondary and former?
You'll see all the different addresses. And so the way that we have done that, and same thing with phone numbers and emails as well, that when you're looking at the two records side by side, if there's 3 addresses on one and 2 addresses on the other, we will actually preserve enough space for 3 addresses on both, so that as you're scrolling down through the comparison screen, the address records always line up the email addresses, just to make it the ease of use for scanning the results. So you will see all the contact information regardless of however many there are. I believe it uses the full name field in the list builder. But I would have to confirm. I would have to double check on that. But I believe we use the full name, which obviously is either going to be the org name or the first, middle, last, and to construct that name.
Great. And then here's our last question for today. What are the hosting options for the SSO solution?
So the SSO solution, currently we do not have any clients. I think we have this deployed at about 13 different organizations right now. None of those clients are currently Blackbaud hosted, although we would be happy to talk through that. That being said, Blackbaud does have their own single sign-on solution. And so organizations, there's a couple organizations that we're working with that used to be Blackbaud hosted, but have moved to either on-premise hardware or have moved to their own private cloud. And in those cases, those organizations have adopted our single sign-on solution. Typically, we do managed services for those organizations, so we're very accustomed with their environments. We manage their CRM infrastructure, we manage upgrades for them, and so on and so forth. So in those cases, we've taken our single sign-on solution and plugged it into their SAML provider, so that they have a kind of a consistent login experience when they have moved from Blackbaud. And then obviously there's a number of organizations that were never hosted by Blackbaud and still use our single sign-on solution.
Wonderful. Well, those are the questions that we have for today. And if we were unable to get to them, please know that we'll pass those along and follow up with you directly after today's webinar. But that's all we have for you today. So I'm going to send it back to Andrew for a final thank you. And you can go and enjoy the rest of your day. Andrew.
You will be getting a recording of this, or a link to the recording, as she mentioned. And also, if you have any further questions, there's a expert access at Zuri Group email, or Andrew at zurigroup.com as well. And we're excited and appreciate of your time today, and looking forward to helping you with the expert access solutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.